I can't believe you missed your husband's surgery. You're a terrible daughter-in-law. This is unbelievable. My mother-in-law called me first thing in the morning and immediately began yelling as soon as I picked up the phone. What's this supposed to mean? I don't have a husband or in-laws, I responded, completely confused. What are you talking about, Melody? She asked, her voice shaking with fury. You're married to Easton, aren't you? Have you finally realized you're completely unfit to be a wife? She demanded, waiting for me to answer. Taking a deep breath, I said calmly, haven't you heard from Easton? We're already divorced. The silence on her end was priceless, but the real shock was still to come. My name is Melody. After finishing my degree at a local university, I moved to New York to work for a major company and live on my own. The city and my first job were intimidating, but I had more excitement and ambition than anxiety. Every day, I would take notes on everything I learned and plan out my next steps. My dedication was noticed, and within a year, I was trusted with more responsibilities. As new hires joined the company, I naturally became a senior, guiding and mentoring them as I had once been mentored. One of those new hires was Easton. He had a master's degree from a top university and was already well respected when he started at the company. I, eager and motivated at the time, was appointed his mentor. Easton, being highly intelligent, quickly grasped everything I taught him. It felt rewarding to share my knowledge with him and see it applied effectively. We started spending time together after work, and I realized that I enjoyed his company more than anything else. He felt the same way. Hey, are you two a couple? One of our coworkers asked, noticing us hanging out after work every day. No, it's nothing like that, I laughed. I actually want to date Melody, Easton said, looking at me directly. It seems that way. How about you, Melody? Our coworker pressed. I want to date Easton, I said shyly. And so, Easton and I started dating with the company's approval. 2 years later, we were married, receiving blessings from our colleagues. After we got married, I told Easton, I love my job and feel fulfilled by it. I want to keep working. Of course, he said, I fell for you because of your passion. I'll take care of things at home from now on. His support meant a lot to me, and we agreed on a dual-income lifestyle, but my mother-in-law wasn't on board. During my first New Year's visit home after marriage, she confronted me. Mel, when are you going to quit your job? She asked bluntly. Like I've said before, I love my job, and I want to keep working, I responded politely. You've been married for a year, you should start having children and leave the job to your husband. Being a good wife should be your priority, she insisted. But Easton and I have talked about this, I tried to explain. He's just being kind, you shouldn't be making him do the housework, she retorted dismissively. Despite my best efforts, she wouldn't listen. Easton intervened. Hold on, Mom, Melody and I have talked this through. Fine, but that doesn't change the fact that Melody's pushing things too far, my mother-in-law muttered. I'm happy with our life. If anything comes up, we'll discuss it, Easton said firmly. Well, if you say so. With that, she grudgingly dropped the issue. I quietly thanked Easton. Thanks. No, I should apologize. If my mom gives you trouble again, let me know, he reassured me. Though I was still concerned about my mother-in-law, Easton's kindness made it easier to enjoy our newlywed life. A few months later, I was offered a promotion and shared the news with Easton. Guess what, Easton? I'm getting promoted in April, I told him excitedly. To manager? He asked, raising an eyebrow. Yes, my boss noticed my hard work, I said, hoping he'd share my excitement. But his reaction was unexpected. He looked upset. Melody, whose credit is that? He asked coldly. What do you mean? I was stunned. Isn't it because I help you with housework that you're able to focus on work? How can you be promoted before me? You're getting in the way of my career, he snapped bitterly. That doesn't make any sense, I replied, confused. This wasn't the Easton I knew. He suddenly started blaming me, and I couldn't understand why. Wait, didn't you agree that I could balance both work and home life? I reminded him. Balance? He scoffed. Housework only happens because I help. Can you really say you're balancing work and family? You're not being a good wife. That's not true, I protested, feeling hurt. Easton's next words were harsh. If you can't manage the housework properly, why don't you just quit your job and focus on being a wife? I don't want to quit my job, I said, feeling desperate. My boss saw how hard I work. I'll do better at home too, I promised. I decided to take over all the housework myself, hoping that would win Easton's approval, but he didn't help at all and started complaining about things that had never bothered him before. "Did you just grill meat for dinner?" he asked one evening, criticizing the meal. "No, it's sautéed pork," I explained, surprised by his negative reaction. "Isn't that just a shortcut? You only cook simple meals because you're working, right?" he sneered. Easton started staying out late, claiming he was going to drinking parties, and we drifted further apart. "Easton, why don't we have dinner together sometimes? We haven't talked much lately," I suggested, hoping to reconnect. But he didn't listen. "What? I don't want your lazy meals," he snapped. At work, he started complaining about my housework, and things only got worse. He even told my mother-in-law about it, and her attitude towards me became more hostile. "Melody, you said you'd handle the housework yourself, but it seems like you haven't been cooking at all lately," she criticized. "Easton hasn't been home," I explained. "Excuses don't suit you," she replied coldly. "Your husband doesn't come home because you're not taking care of the house. A wife should create a home he wants to return to," she chastised me. "I'm sorry," I muttered, feeling defeated from the start. Easton, who graduated from a prestigious university, and I, from a small local university, were never a good match, and yet, "You're so bold to work when you should be grateful just to be married," she concluded. Even though I wanted to talk to Easton, he had started coming home in the morning instead of late at night. "Easton, are there really that many company drinking parties?" I asked. "Who are you drinking with all the time?" He dodged the question, saying, "You don't need to know, couples need privacy." Something felt off about his words and actions, but he locked himself in his room without talking to me. The next day, I was sure my intuition was right. On my way back home, I realized I'd forgotten something at the office and was heading back when I spotted Easton walking arm in arm with an unfamiliar woman. I immediately texted him. "Me, Easton, are you still at work? I need to talk to you, can you come home?" His response came quickly. "Easton, I can't come home, I'm busy with work." I knew he was lying. Had he been faking work and meeting women like this all along? I confronted him when he came home in the morning. "Welcome home," I said, sitting in the dark room, waiting for him. "Melody," he said, surprised to see me. "I told you I had something important to talk about," I replied. "Can't it wait until tomorrow? I'm exhausted from work," he muttered. "Is meeting women part of your job?" I asked, holding up a photo I had secretly taken. His face instantly darkened, but he quickly retorted, "This is your fault too. If you were a better wife, I wouldn't be out with other women." "What? That's no excuse for cheating." I tried to stay calm, but my voice wavered with anger. Easton said nothing, his silence making me even angrier. "I do most of the housework, and I've been doing my duties as a wife, so what's the real issue?" I asked, frustrated. "It's because you've become so full of yourself after your promotion," he said bitterly. "What?" I was stunned. "I'm angry because you're acting so superior now that you've been promoted," he continued, his voice thick with resentment. "You're not even that good at your job. You only got promoted because your boss likes you. Don't let it get to your head." That was when I finally understood why his behavior had shifted. He was upset that I had been promoted before him. If that was the issue, he should have worked harder himself. I had done nothing but support him, and yet here I was, losing respect for him with every word. Oblivious to my growing indifference, he kept justifying himself. "You said you do most of the housework, but everything you do is subpar." "Subpar?" I repeated, shocked. "The house is dirty, the food is awful," he sneered. "Imagine living like that." I cheated because you're a terrible wife who can't do your job right. His smug expression made my blood boil. "I've had enough. If that's how you feel, let's just get a divorce," I said, ignoring his stunned reaction. I quickly packed my things and left. The next day, I signed the divorce papers and sent them to him, then found a new place to live. A few months later, I was awakened by an early morning call from my mother-in-law. She immediately began shouting. "How could you not show up for your husband's surgery? You're an awful daughter-in-law." "Wait, what are you talking about? I don't have a husband or in-laws," I replied, confused. "What do you mean, Melody? You're Easton's wife, aren't you? Have you finally realized how unfit you are as a wife?" she scolded. I stayed silent, and she sighed before continuing. "Well, fine. If you want to be recognized as a wife, get to the hospital now." Apparently, Easton had been hospitalized after crashing his car. When she told me the hospital name, I calmly replied, "Haven't you heard, mother-in-law? Easton and I are already divorced." "Divorced?" she gasped. "Yes, we divorced because he cheated," I told her. "Cheated?" she exclaimed in disbelief. "Yep, and he even blamed me for it, saying it wasn't his fault," I added. She muttered almost to herself, "My son isn't to blame. Easton would never cheat. If he did, it's because you weren't a good wife." I couldn't believe she was parroting Easton's words. I responded, "Even so, there's no excuse for cheating, is there?" She went silent for a moment. I finally said, "By the way, thank you for calling today." "What? Why are you thanking me?" she asked, perplexed. I wasn't sure where to send the reminder letter because Easton had moved out, I explained. "Reminder letter?" she asked, confused. "When we divorced, I filed for compensation, but it's still overdue," I replied. At the mention of compensation, her voice faltered. Before she could speak, I continued, "I didn't want to involve you, but now that I know where Easton is, I'll deliver it right away." I could hear her panic. "Wait, Easton just had surgery yesterday, please don't do anything that'll hurt him." I remained calm. "Even if I don't take action now, he might run again." "Wait, we need to pay for the surgery, we can't afford to pay the compensation," she pleaded. "Easton doesn't have much saved up, I have to pay for his surgery." I suspected Easton had used his savings for his affair, but that wasn't my problem. His actions had consequences. "Then tell me the name and address of the woman he was seeing," she said. "Easton will definitely leave you for her, maybe she'll help pay." "That's not going to happen," I replied. "Why not?" she asked. "Because his affair partner is married too, and even though the affair came out, they didn't divorce. They already paid their share of the compensation, so I doubt they want anything to do with Easton anymore." "Unbelievable," she said, realizing there was nothing she could do. I stayed calm. "I'm going now." "Wait, come right now," she urged. "Please wait," she begged. But I hung up. I went to the hospital and handed Easton the reminder letter. He was lying in bed, exhausted from his surgery. His voice was pitiful as he pleaded, "Melody, I've been lost without you, can't we start over?" My mother-in-law chimed in. "That's right, Melody, you can work as much as you want now, you can help Easton while he recovers, he can't work." I felt disgusted by their selfishness. "I came here to deliver the reminder letter. If you keep refusing to pay and making excuses, I'll take this to court," I said, turning to leave without waiting for a response. The mention of court seemed to make her act quickly. She immediately transferred the compensation to me. A colleague who had overheard everything at the hospital spread the word, and soon Easton's reputation as a cheater was all over the company. He couldn't handle the shame and resigned. He moved back in with his parents and tried to find a new job but only aimed for high-paying companies, leaving him unemployed for months. He couldn't even pay my mother-in-law back and ended up working as a day laborer to make ends meet. As for me, I was finally free of both Easton and his mother. I threw myself into my career, getting another promotion. I felt more fulfilled than ever, not just for myself, but for my boss and my senior, who had helped me grow. I vowed to continue facing my work with sincerity. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video. Stay stunned.